talk about another team. You said fall from grace, which is a very interesting turn of phrase, because we're going to look at a team that has definitely fallen from grace, and that is the Cincinnati Bengals and their decline from that Super Bowl team in 2022. I mean, they lost that Super Bowl, James, 23-20 against the Rams. They then went into the AFC Championship in the next season and lost again 23-20 against the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think we all felt as an NFL fan base that this could be another dynasty on our hands here. You know, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, this defense was really good. Zach Taylor turned from this coach that only won 2 games to then getting the guy and getting the team. And suddenly it was becoming something. And again, a team with an identity and a character, I suppose. And since then, it's not been great. Last season, they go 9-8. Now they're currently 3-5. They lose to the Eagles this weekend, 37-17. And it's been a rough season for them. You know, the offense is looking okay, but this defense has really just crumbled away. I mean, what do you pinpoint are the factors that have seen this team go to the heights to what's seeming like a bit of the lows this year?
Yeah, massive capitulation defensively, and I think it stems weirdly from a bit of money. I mean, you know, they knew big contracts were coming around for Jamar Chase, for Joe Burrow, and they waited and waited. And when you wait, you then end up paying the price of what over and above what the last guy was. And the longer you wait, the more that goes up because more people jump the queue in front of you, and then you have to pay out more than you perhaps could have done if you'd have done this a year before. But and there was one eye on that, I think, when it started defensively with Jesse Bates when he left. You know, he was second rounder from Wake Forest in 2018, and was looking like an incredible player for them, but ended up leaving in 2023 to sign a 4-year deal with the Falcons with $64 million, a price that the Bengals just weren't willing to meet. Like I say, probably with one eye on Chase and Burrow and possibly Higgins and whatever else, you know, coming down the line. And he was a Pro Bowl player. He's arguably playing at an All-Pro level this year. And Lou Anarumo, the defensive coordinator for the Bengals, was saying Bates's versatility in defending players from receivers to tight ends and his talent at tracking the ball was some of the things that made him great. Now, they just haven't been able to replace that. They've spent premium picks on defenders in the last couple of years. They've tried to get younger there to save money elsewhere. I think it's like Miles Murphy, a defensive end in 2023. They took Dax Hill the year before. They also used 3 straight second-round picks on defenders: Cam Taylor-Britt in 2022, DJ Turner in 2023, and Chris Jenkins Jr. in 2024. So Cam Taylor-Britt has probably looked the better of those picks and looks okay, but again, he's just not setting the world alight. And the numbers just show us, you know, prior to Monday night, the Bengals were ranked 27th in the league in red zone efficiency and 29th in goal to go efficiency. That's, you know, on the other side of the ball, 27th in the 27th ranked third down defense. Before that, in the seasons before, they kind of prided themselves on, even if they allowed teams to get down the field, they just made that goal line stand. And you might walk away with 3 points, but very rare, you know, you weren't coming away with 7, whatever it took. And now it's just too easy to score on them. And so, you know, Lou Anarumo's scheme, he just hasn't been able to utilize players in the same way that he would have hoped he could have done when he picked these guys. And maybe it's youth, maybe it's inexperience, maybe, you know, with a year more game time, they will pick up. But some of these guys have been there for a couple of years now and still aren't doing it. Still questions around Zach Taylor, I think, in the issues with play calling, which have haunted them for the last couple of years. But it's definitely the defensive side of the ball for me that's been letting them down, and their inability to just get stops or create turnovers or, you know, just cause the chaos that they were causing teams a few years ago, that sort of halted this, what looked to be an ascension. And now has got them playing at a very average level. That said, they'll still beat the Raiders this week, so doesn't matter.
It has been ugly scenes with this defense, Johnny, for our ugly section tonight. And as James referred to, I mean, since 2022 they've drafted 13 defensive players. They all don't seem to be progressing. It doesn't feel like, you said about the stats for third down efficiency. I was about to say deficiency, which is probably relevant as well with how they're playing. But 22nd in pass yards, 21st in passing touchdowns, 25th in rushing yards, 30th in rushing touchdowns. That all around the park here, Johnny, it's just looking uglier and uglier. And do you agree with James? They just don't seem to be. They moved off of Bates. It feels like it did hinge on that. And then they've just not been able to develop these young guys, even though some of these young guys they've drafted on the defensive side of the ball have been really competent players in college. It just doesn't seem to have. Do you think it's an organization thing, but they're just not being able to? Maybe they don't have the right staff in there to be able to develop these young prospects, or is it more of a timing thing? Because, like James said, I know these guys that were drafted this last draft have not had much time, but since 2022, like I said, 13 players. That's a few starters in there by now.
Yeah, I completely think it's an organizational thing, not having the right personnel, the right staff in, not just on the defense, but all around the roster. I think I think Zach Taylor's really under pressure. And I think if, like going back to James's point about money, if there was any other franchise, he would be well on the hot seat right now. I think, he's so insistent on keeping the play calling, and it seems to be really, acting as a deterrent for Josh Burrow. He's obviously, relying very heavily on his passing and his leadership. And the overall team, there has to be someone who can step up alongside. We saw against the Eagles that they weren't looking to the run game and trying to force it with Burrow. The fourth down situation in their own half, I think, was fairly exemplary towards the end of the game. This team was winning against the Eagles and had a real opportunity to go on and win the games, just like they've had, I think, throughout the season in games. And I think a lot of blame has to go to the head coach. We've got two units on both sides of the ball that are not playing anywhere near their potential. We know this team is maybe not yet a Super Bowl caliber team. Obviously, they got there a few years ago. They've lost a couple of players and have brought new young blood in that needs time to develop. But absolutely, they've got a fantastic quarterback. Great players around the team. They just have to have the right people around them. And I really think that the Bengals are missing a leader because they're relying so heavily on Joe Burrow. And I think that leadership issue is with the coaching staff, and it starts with.
I'm sorry to interject, but they are 6th in passing yards and 5th in passing touchdowns. Do you just think that is just pure talent of Burrow and Chase?
Yeah, because they're relying so heavily on Burrow and not looking elsewhere. Obviously, they gave up Joe Mixon, and we know how destructive he was. And someone who was able to churn out yards. Obviously, a huge part of that is an offensive line which is capable in the right play calling. It feels like Chase Brown and Zach Moss are present. Certainly in the game against the Eagles, they weren't able to do much. But I feel at times that the Bengals are trying to focus everything on. They're trying to look to Burrow to solve everything because they're giving up so many points. Obviously, they're able to score points with Burrow, but they're just asking far too much of him. And obviously the defense is one of the worst in the NFL. But I do think that it's not just that side of the ball that we need to take a look at. I think there are problems all around the team. Not from a talent point of view. Obviously, that old cliche, talent is permanent, form is temporary. I think that comes from a variety of things, whether that be a lack of confidence in themselves and the organization to lead them forward. Obviously, the bad animosity around around contracts in the off season, whether they're going to keep T. Higgins, obviously Jamar Chase's issue.
I was going to ask you that. Do you think that, because it feels like that has knocked on effect in a way?
I think it has a knock-on effect for a lot of franchises. You know, the 49ers, I don't think, you know, obviously they've lost their best player, but they are such a juggernaut that, you know, I think of all the positions, you know, the running back position has been quite, you know, dispensable for the 49ers. They've been able to replace him with Jordan Mason. We saw how good a game the young rookie had on Monday. So the 49ers haven't changed a whole lot, but yet we're sort of, I even said I didn't think they were going to make the playoffs, is one of my, you know, really, really hot takes. And yeah, I think it's like the Bengals. I don't feel much has changed. I think a big hole has been left on the defensive line through DJ Reader, you know, injuries. Sam Hubbard, I think, missed a lot of training camp. They've also got injuries up front in the trenches. So that obviously has a huge, you know, impact in the team. But yeah, I think any sort of animosity, particularly with, you know, their premium players holding out or, you know, not wanting to come back. Look at the Jets, someone who had come into the building and hadn't even, you know, got to know anyone. And they got so much attention in Hassan Reddick for what? And I don't know. I'm not saying that was obviously played a huge part in their demise, but the negative headlines will always have an impact, I think, organizationally, because, you know, gets people talking, gets people wondering whether this is, you know, a franchise which is all in, and whether they can themselves, you know, whether the players themselves can buy into an organization which is seemingly, you know, on the front line, on the front pages and on social media as being dysfunctional and not having everything together. So yeah, I certainly think that noise can be bad and detrimental, particularly for franchises with a lot of young players, which obviously the Bengals have. So I think there is a little bit of a culture issue, and I think it's a lack of leadership.
I have to admit, if they don't figure it out, it doesn't break my heart. I'm putting my Steelers cap on. It doesn't break my heart that much if they don't figure this out. But it is a shame that well, yeah, I know, yeah, breaking news on that one. It's not. It's surprising to see a franchise like this, but it's been so successful in the last few years, come to this point. But I think both your points have been fantastic and really articulate with how the Bengals can move forward from this. So we shall wait and see what we may expect from them going forward.